All right, we're live. Today's class all about kind of goal setting, but more tagging off of what Harry said. And so I'm going to have him kind of jump in a bunch and make sure I don't overspeak from what he had in his class on Monday. But I want to kind of tie together some pieces and kind of where I run into a lot of people going through their business plan or their 135. And for any of you that haven't taken any 135 class or GPS class, let's just define that real quick. A 135 and a GPS are the same and are one and the same. So a 1 is your one goal for the year, which is the G or goal. Your 3 is your 3 priorities. So 3 P's, priorities to hit that one goal. And then your 5 or the S is your 5 strategies around each priority to accomplish the one goal. Why we're having this class is because we can talk all day around how to fill out the 135 and what that looks like. And one of the biggest things that happens is when you go sit down with yourself, it's hard to figure out and quantify what that one goal looks like and how do you deduce that down. So you're going to hear me kind of call it run it to ground. Everything I do, every time I negotiate through contracts, inspection objections, my mind says I need to run this point to ground, and meaning there's no stone unturned. And so that's number one in your goal is making sure that you guys can figure out something that basically is tangible, measurable, as well as there's not a whole lot of holes in it, right? So if you say, I want to make anywhere between 100,000 to 150,000, you didn't run it to ground. We want to run it to ground to a number, to an actual number and not a range. So the reason why we have a hard time with it is because you guys haven't paved that path yet. We have no metrics from you guys producing or doing anything last year. And so I don't undermine anybody who can't come up with that one goal, or who can come up with a goal but yet is unsure if they're willing to take the activities to do what it takes to get to that one goal. So we wanted to put this together so that way you guys can really kind of use us and chime in. And if we have a small group like this, it could be a lot more powerful. If you guys want to interact and share with us some things and have more of a one-on-one kind of coaching moment, that we can use some of what you guys are doing to actually help you deduce it down. So for instance, in real estate, I commonly see 2 goals. So we're talking professional goals. You can do 135s, you can do business plans for personal life and everything like that. But for today's purposes, we're just going to simply look at business goals. And when I sit down with people, there's 2 types of business goals that really come up: transactional or monetary. So meaning somebody's looking for an actual dollar amount that they're looking to make, or some people are looking for that transaction. I think that has to be figured out first. I think that you really have to know that you can have a transaction goal as well as an income goal, and they both won't align. We can use averages all day long, but they still may or may not align. And so that's for you guys to figure out. So one of the questions I ask people is, would you rather sell 1 house and make $100,000? Or would you rather sell 10 houses and make $100,000? And there's no right or wrong answer to that. And after you've been in the industry for a little while, you'd probably just want to sell 1 house and make $100,000. But during your first year, your first couple of years, you may tell me, hey, Bruce, I want to sell 10 houses to make $100,000. And then that's when we will work backwards and we'll figure out, okay, how can we make $100,000 as well as fit a game plan around selling 10 homes? And where do we deduce that down? That was the biggest struggle that I had working in this industry. I said, I want to make $100,000. I make $100,000. And when I look at my bank account at the end of the year, I probably brought home more like 50 to 60K and can't figure out why when I know I was making $100,000. It's because we're in business now. We don't take into account for taxes. We're not used to taking into account for taxes. We're not used to taking into account for business expenses and all the other minutia and stuff that comes with real estate. So let's dive in and let's go over let's go through an exercise with a dollar amount. You got something, Harry? Go for it, brother.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So who has a profit goal that they want to work backwards from for 2021? I'm going to call Melissa then, because I've already went over this with her, so we can use her example.
Yeah.
My profit goal is 153,000.
153,000. So Melissa, let's role play for a sec. So 153,000. That's a very precise number. How did you come up with that?
So I have a 2-year goal, so I just split that in two, and so I want to have 90,000 in savings, and then the other, I guess 63,000 are my estimated expenses, my personal expenses for the year.
Okay, so she dialed into her personal expense.
Just want to make sure I understand that. So Melissa, when you say I want to make 163,000, are you saying you want to net 163,000 or you want to gross 163,000?
I want to, oh, sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
I want to net.
Okay.
Yep. So Melissa wants to net 153,000, and she knows exactly where she's going because 153,000 isn't just something pulled out of a hat. And what I mean by hat is, I was the hat guy. I told my coach I want to make $100,000. That was pulled out of a hat. She dove into her finances. She dove into her budget. She dove into her life, and she also dove into her investing goals, her other financial areas that she wants. So she wants to invest $90,000 and live off of 63 to get her 153. I love that. So now let's help her work backwards of how many transactions is that? How much does she actually have to make in order for her to net or bring home 153K? So first and foremost, we want to add Uncle Sam's tax on there, right? So Melissa, what did we calculate?
32%.
32%. So if she's diligent with this and does the right thing, she's probably not going to hit a 32% tax bracket. But if you go over the 180K a year, and you can ask your CPA, I'm not a CPA, I need to throw out that disclaimer. I know that you get taxed at a higher bracket once you hit $180,000 in income. So we went with the worst case scenario of 32% tax. And so if you have to tax yourself off of income of 153,000, we got to calculate exactly what is the tax on 153,000 at 32%. 153,000 times 1.32 equals 201,960. So let's call it 202. So before taxes, she needs to make 202,000. But now we have some other things in business, right? We just said it, business expenses. So we need to add in some business expenses. What are some non-negotiable business expenses? Cap. So we're going to add in 18,000 there.
KWRI.
And what is that, Harry?
3,000.
Okay. And for everybody watching this video, that's what we call your royalty fee. Yep. So we're not going to go over in this in depth, but 18,000 goes to the market center and 3,000 goes to international to keep us going and keep the tech rolling out. So the offices do not get the full 21,000, but that's why it's kind of split up. But what you have to think about is that 21K.
Now we're going to take some more expenses, and we're going to call them fixed and variables. Some fixed expenses that no matter what you do in this world, in real estate, you're going to pay them. Your dues, right? Your real estate dues once a year. What is it in Longmont? 600, 650?
For being a realtor, 700.
So 650 for that. You got $540 for Iris, right? Not going away. You got $20 in EO, might be more. It's 32, I think. So you've got another, say, $300 in insurance, real estate insurance, right? So
REO is taken out of our monthly fee at the office. So $100 a month at the office. $100 a month at the office. So $1,200.
So $1,200. Okay, thank you, Bruce. Does that make sense? Those are fixed things. No matter what you do, you're going to pay that. Some people like to include the phone because they say, there's a fixed cost to your phone. And Bruce, I'm going to stop and let you keep going because I got a little carried away. But I just taught this Monday.
I love it. I love it. This is exactly, he's right. These are all the things that you want to go through. So here's where I kind of stop and before we continue to add up some dollars, I would encourage you to, this is the hardest part. CPAs want your money just to sit down with them and do a tax plan. Somewhere, shape, or form online, you can find small business owners tax write-off kind of itemized list.
Yep.
Go online, find that list, and go through there and ask yourself, what am I currently spending in my personal life that I could be spending in my business life? So about a couple of years ago, Carly Real Estate LLC started paying for my cell phone bill. That is a fixed expense for me. I wasn't doing that before, and it's beyond me why I wasn't doing it. And really what it was one, I didn't want to pay the money to sit down with a tax advisor, and I should have. So if you have the money, sit down with a CPA and go through a tax plan and really grill them about everything you can be writing off, because I mark my words, if you have the right CPA and you sit down with them for 2 hours, whatever they charge you, I don't care if it's $5,000 for that 2 hours, most likely you'll learn something that will save you $5,000 down the road. I would never pay $5,000, but I'm telling you it's worth its weight. I think I paid $200 for 2 hours of my guy's time.
And so I think that's a fixed expense. You can't be in real estate if you don't have a phone. I mean, let's just be honest.
Yep.
So you're gonna have a fixed expense there. It doesn't go away, right?
Yep.
And so those are your fixed. Now we're going to talk to you about your variables, because you have variables, right? If you go buy signs and you bought 15 signs, it's a variable expense. You didn't have to buy them. You could have borrowed somebody's, but you bought them, okay? So you have to add all those variable things that you do. Mileage. Hope you're using Miles IQ, I think it's called. It's a app that every time you get in the car, it tells you, whoop, was that a personal call? I mean, a personal drive or a business drive? So you can click, and at the end of the month, it tells you what you're going to get. Remember, it's 58 cents a mile. And so every time you go out and show a house or do whatever, that's a lot of money you get to take off on your taxes.
Bingo.
So
Yeah, if you guys don't, yep, that's actually a really good point. Mile IQ, I still use it.
KWRI says you can use as your operating expenses 30%. In other words, on any deal, 30% of your deal was based on, there was an operating expense of 30%. I think that's a little high for me personally. I never got that high. Bruce, you probably could tell us what you used for yourself.
Yep. So 30%. So the KW budget model, it's called a 30-30-40. Yep. And the 30% is, it includes your cost of sale as well as your business expense. So the reason why Harry probably never got up to the 30% was because if he added in what he paid himself, that's where it can add up to the 30%. Right. Yep. So I always tell myself I probably pay myself right around that 20%, and then I got about a 10% in variable miscellaneous stuff.
And you, so, in that 30, you have your cost of sale?
Yeah, that would be like what my salary to myself.
Okay, not your cap.
Nope, not my cap.
Okay, good. Okay, yes, that's correct.
Yep.
Right.
So just for the sake of this video and everything, there's so many things we could talk about. We could talk about all the different write-offs for multiple different hours. Talk to your CPA. It's powerful, especially when you go through and you get down to the end of the year and you run across that agent who made just about as much money as you, and you find out that they paid half in taxes that you paid, and half of that bill that you paid in taxes went back into their business, allowed them to get the latest and greatest laptop, and you're sitting over here going, wow, I just paid $20,000, and this guy paid 10 because he was smart and used the other 10K to basically build his business or have all the latest and greatest technology and gadgets, and both people made just as much money that year, right? So sit down with them.
Yeah, you're an independent contractor. You can write off your health coverage.
Yep, you have to be strategic about it.
Right.
Yep, your health care, you can write that off, but you have to know how to do it. You have to know what to pull it from. You have to know what entity you have to pull up. Throughout my years, I went from being a sole proprietor, so that's probably the majority of this room right now. And then you can jump into an LLC or limited liability company. And then my CPA sat down with me and said, as soon as you start making over $140,000, that's when it's probably advantageous to go into an S corp. An S corp, it costs more to do those taxes, but there's a little bit less tax, income tax that comes off of it. So if you turn into an S corp around $100,000, it's not that it's going to benefit you tax wise, but about 140 is when you start to actually see the savings. So anyways, your tax advisor should be able to speak on all of those fronts. If you're talking to a tax advisor who does not do tax returns on S corporations, get out of there and go to the next person. I also will tell you that in my experience, the best CPAs out there are also ones that do the majority of their work is through self-employed business owners. And another plus for me is a CPA who not only knows how to do self-employment taxes and has a book of business that's built off of self-employed business owners, but also if they have any sort of rental real estate portfolio. So if your end game or your goal is to have a real estate portfolio to help with your retirement, it's going to be nice to have a CPA who you can kind of stick with throughout the years, because trust me, in this world, if the professional you're looking up to for advice is doing the same things in their life that you are, they've taken more time looking at the tax code than a CPA who just does, simple W-2s for, salary or hourly employees, right? That's all they really need to know because that's their book of business. And so if you give them your book, you're not going to be able to guarantee or feel very confident that they're going to be able to find all the tax write-offs that you need. So that's kind of what I look for in any professional piece of this business. But on the CPA and on the budget count, CPAs that kind of specialize in that will save you money hand over fist. Okay, so we've got right around, let's call it 225.5 with fixed expenses, and then we got to add some variable expenses. So we've talked and thrown around a couple of different numbers, 5-10%. So obviously 5% would be about on 200,000, about 10K, so 10 to 20,000. So for the purpose of this video, and when we goal set, we want to go a little high. So I'm going to add in about $20,000 there. And so we're up to 245,500. So let's just round that down, I guess, to 245. And the reason why I'm kind of fluid with some of this is because I also use a very low average sales price point. And the reason why I use a low average sales price point is because traditionally speaking, agents don't necessarily keep up with the average sales price point in the market. So for me, the average sales price point in Longmont is right around the low 500s. My average sales price point is about 473. I know why that is, just because you have those one-off properties that on a spectrum of list prices, about the lowest we go is about 300,000 anymore, right? 250 to 300,000 is like our barrier to entry right now, and it's even really difficult at that. 400 is more in alignment with kind of the norm and the traditional piece. And then the average homeowner, the average income in Colorado can afford you anywhere between about 400 to 500, depending upon how that person set up themselves up financially. Then you've got this other bigger piece of the spectrum. You got properties that go all the way up to a couple of $1 million. So I tend to find that the average sales price point is a little higher on average than what our traditional sales price points are. And especially when you're getting started, you're working with more entry-level buyers, first-time home buyers, those types of things. So I like to use a little bit lower average price point, and let's call it about 400,000.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the board, if you're new, I always tell, go to the board. The board puts out a monthly and year-to-date total for the average price of a home, and it's about 430 something in Loveland. So Bruce is about right. I always go a little low and say use 400 because you're going to have those 350, 360s, and so you want to be able to balance that out. And if you're lucky, the home was 450 for the year, you made more money.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Exactly. So, And 400, pretty much whether you're in Loveland, Longmont, Fort Collins, Firestone, Frederick, Dacono, Milliken, Johnstown, you name it, 400 is pretty much on par with everyone. So we have a $400,000 price point and an average of 2.8% commission to that side is 11,200. So on 11,200, that would be one sale. So if we take 11,200 and divide that into 245, 450,
About 24, yeah, 23.
it's 21.9. So 21.9. So Melissa pretty well needs to do about 22 deals next year because we can't do 0.9. So anywhere, and I'm gonna tell Melissa that that's kind of where I would consider her base level to be. I think that you could still profit 153,000 off of selling maybe 18, depending upon the price point, and anywhere up to 25, depending upon the price point too. So if you sell a bunch of condos and townhomes and things of that nature, you might have to sell 25. So let's use 22 as the example. So if that's clearly defined, if that's clearly what we're looking to achieve and accomplish, then her goal for the year to hit her number one goal of $153,000 in profit would be 22 homes. So then I would ask Melissa, just to reiterate and just to be sure that this is the most important thing to you, would you rather sell 15 homes and make $153,000 in profit, or would you rather sell 25 homes and make $153,000 in profit?
15.
15, perfect. I just want to make sure that it's not transactionally driven, that that's the dollar amount that you want. Mm-hmm. So now that may sound all well and good, right? Melissa can say, oh, 22, that's not a problem, right? But the problem is she doesn't know yet. This is Melissa's first year in the industry. How does she know whether she's got the tenacity and the energy to do what it takes to hit 22 closings for the year, right? So now we need to work backwards. Now we need to figure out, that's a great goal. I love that we ran that to ground, but now what are my activities? What am I committed to doing, and how hard is that going to be, or how easy is that going to be? And do I need to adjust that? Maybe we work back through this exercise and Melissa says, crap, let's make 200,000. There's no way I'm not going to be able to do that. Or wow, I've got a kiddo, I've got, things at my house, I've got still building up my business. I don't yet feel confident. I've got a lot to learn. There's a lot of self-doubt that can come into play, and we might have to tailor that down. But the key with what we're talking about today is setting ourselves up for that realistic expectation, setting ourselves up to make sure that we are committed to our goal because we're committed to the activity that's around that goal. This is where I pause for a second before we actually start to dive into that math around 22 closings. There's a book that I just started reading, and I'm not through the whole thing yet, so I can't give you all the tidbits and all the points. But what Harry and I do on a daily basis is help you guys with your efficiency, right? And efficiency comes in two different manners or two different ways, right? One efficiency is time blocking, making sure that you're utilizing and effectively putting together your time in the way it should be, handled. The other piece is what we're gonna call skills, right? Your skills, the way you talk, how you know when to ask for business, what to say, how to convert somebody who's telling you no. That would be your skills, right? Or like your presentation, landing those presentations, interviewing against other agents and winning that client. So those are your two most effective things to work on to then get you into the place where you can commit and work on your goals. So that's what we do to help you. I will tell you that there's a book called the 12 week work year. Hold on. Gosh darn it. I feel like an idiot on this. I would go to Amazon. The 12-week year. So it's a 12-week year by somebody. This 12-week year is kind of blowing my mind a little bit, and I just started it. Somebody gave me this book or recommended this book to me a little bit ago, And it's everything of what we're talking about right now. If you don't run your goals to ground, if you don't know what your activities are per day, you spend too much time throughout the day actually processing what you should be doing. Versus if you actually have a clear plan of action and attack, you're much more likely to take action. And that's what that book's all about. The opening intro basically says, look, I'm going to keep this short and simple. This book is not complicated or hard. The reason why it's a long book is because throughout this book, I have to change your mind. I have to change your mindset around things. Because for him to just say, hey, set a plan in action and go take the action, it's easier said than done. We have all of these mental constraints in our head, and he goes through and he talks about how much we put on ourselves throughout the day that you and I both could never even quantify. And that's what we're getting at right here. When we go and we dive through these goals, and when we go through and we figure out what kind of activity or commitments Melissa needs to make throughout her weeks and her months next year, she has to understand that, one, if something sounds too large for her, she might have to pivot. She might have to change up her daily schedule. As well as this will provide so much clarity and focus that if she knows what her tasks are per day, she won't spend, get this, roughly an hour a day we spend in our head processing what we should be doing next, or where we should be going, or how we should be acting. I didn't realize that. And then that, like, when I'm reading this book, it brings up this thing I heard about Mark Zuckerberg, right? He wears the same outfit every single day. Why is that? Anybody know?
So that he doesn't have to think about what he's wearing.
Bingo. That's it. He knows that if he wears the same outfit every single day, if he even saves himself a half a minute to a minute, that's 365 minutes back to him per year. That's how a billionaire thinks. That 365 minutes in 1 year is an incredible amount of money. If you take that guy's income and just divide it by the seconds in a day, it will astonish you what he brings home. So that's so powerful and so important for him, right? I think Jeff Bezos makes, in 1 minute per day, makes more than the average household income of an income in the state of Michigan. 1 minute. It's like $60,000 every minute. It doesn't matter whether he's sleeping, eating, working, doing whatever.
That's great. Somebody's got to make it.
Yeah. And see, and they've got to that place where that's what they have to do. Look at Jeff Bezos' outfits. It's not that he wears the same outfits every day. They're simple and they're very similar. But this goes back to why clarity is so powerful. Once you have clarity on your day, you won't have to spend time thinking about things you don't need to think about. The other thing about having clarity in a focal point is you can get out of your own way a lot easier. So we talk all the time about, how do I get out of my own way? I know what I need to be doing. Now, why can't I forcefully make myself do it, right? You're not going to club yourself over the head with a baseball bat, but you also need to figure out, metaphorically speaking, how to club yourself over the head with a baseball bat some days. A lot of times what happens is we don't really need that club. What we need is more focus. We need more clarity. And through going through this exercise and doing this, we can dive into that clarity piece. Does that hit home? Does anybody have any comments before we run this backwards?
Okay.
Sorry?
So let's go back to Melissa. So I think we said 22, right? So we got to get 22 deals. So we know that big goal up there says 22. I don't want you to look at that 22 every day. I would prefer to have you look at, what's my month look like, right? This is where we're going to break it down a little bit. So 22, for the sake of this discussion, 22 divided by your 12 is roughly, let's just say 2 a month, just for this exercise. That'll be a little bit more than what you need, but it'll still get you 2 a month. Okay, so now you have 2, right? Then what are you going to say to yourself? Okay, I know I got to get these 2. Now you got to figure out, okay, I know I've got 2. What are they going to be? Are they going to be a listing agent or a buyer's agent? You figure that out, right? Because you can do that in that 22. Of that 22, how many are going to be buyer? How many are going to be listing, right? Let's say for the sake of this, it's half and half. Okay, now, and this is going to get back into what Bruce was talking about. Now you're going to go into the week and say, okay, I got to do these things this week. Monday, I'm going to do these things, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I used to love when people would come into my office and go, oh my God, I have my to-do list and everything else. And I would sit and I would say, Melissa, what's the number one thing we got to get accomplished? Well, I got to get a listing. Okay, so let's look at your to-do list and let's look at those things that are going to get you that listing. And if there's things in that to-do list that day that aren't going to get you that listing, we're not doing them because that's not getting you to your goal. It might be great that you got to check it off, but it had no value towards meeting your goal. So I used to tell people, take those 4 things off. Sometimes they almost look at me and go like this. They go, I just can't take them off. I go, well, then you're never going to hit the goal because you're not working on those things that are going to hit your goal. Within that, those days, what are those lead generating things you're going to do, right? Because maybe Monday you say, you know, today is telemarketing day. So I'm going to telemarket on Monday. Tuesday, I'm going to do social media, right? Wednesday, I'm going to do the, because it's all that, those 4 weeks and those things that you do each day within that 4 week, they're going for one thing. What is it? To hit your 2. And guess what? If you're really good one month and you get 3, you're on top of the game. You're next, getting towards December, it's going to be free money. You can either say, I think I'm going to take an extra week of vacation, or I'm going to bust it because I want to hit 25, right? It gives you that option, but it keeps you focused. When Bruce talks about being focused, that keeps you focused. You can look at it and go, damn, today's Monday and I got to do these 3 things. These 3 things are going to get me to that goal. The other 3 things, if I do my lead generation right, because I don't want you to lead generate all day, you'll go crazy. You'll have time to do those other 3 or 4 things that are small things, right? That you can take off that list. But until you do those that are going to help you get to that goal, no point in trying to cross them up. I used to love, somebody would tell me that, oh, they'd come in, I got this done, and I'd think, it didn't do it. I'm glad you got it off your list, but it didn't help do anything, right? The whole point is, did it get you towards your goal? 1 listing and 1 buyer. So that's really what a 411 is. 1 goal, then you break it down by the month, then you break it down into the 4 weeks. And I say within that 4 weeks, you do it by day. And that's what I love about, you know, some people say, well, I got to lead generate today. Okay, what are you going to do in lead generation? It doesn't always have to be, you have to do everything in lead generation. I always believe to rotate it. If you're going to do, we know you're going to do social media. You guys don't get you don't get a free ride that I'm not going to do social media. It's too darn easy, and there's a great potential for leads. You got to do social media. The other one is you're going to call your sphere. No matter what else you do, you're going to call your sphere, and you're going to do some 36 touches, right? 12, 24, whatever you want. I do 24. But my point is those 2 things are automatic. So what other 3 things are you going to do during that week that are lead generating, right? Well, on Monday, I'm going to telemarket. On a 2, I'm going to have an open house one day, and the other day I'm going to do whatever, an event, whatever it is. And by the way, your 4 week, there's 7 days in that week. There's nowhere does it say you have to be off Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. If you have personal things you got to get done, and you know and your to-do list for that week is to do an open house, and it's Saturday, Saturday becomes your work day. Go the other day, pick a day that you can have the whole afternoon to do those things you need to do. Does that make sense? So it's almost like you're trying to balance that work-life balance that I think is important. So if we just created a 411, if you look at it and you sit down with it, you just created a 411. You know what your ultimate goal is. You know what your monthly goal is. We broke it down. And guess what? It's funner and easier to look at 2 than it is to look at 22. We're going to get to 22 because every month we're going to hit there, right? But 22 sort of gives you that, whoa, that's a big number and I'm not going to hit it. 2, you're going, man, I can do this with a piece of cake, right? Because 2 doesn't have to be 2, it could be 4. If you're on the first week of your 411 and you hit your 2 already, oh my God, you got 3 weeks that you can go out and get another 2. and you're ahead of the game. It doesn't change what your next month goal was, by the way. All it does is it's a benefit, right? It's more money in your pocket. Does that make sense? So that's really what the 411 does. It breaks it down to make your life, it's Bruce to a T. It's so that it helps you become focused. And focused means what are those things you're doing to get that goal? And if those things that you're doing aren't getting you to that, don't do them. Useless. Not going to get you there. Okay. Any questions? First, I went over the 4-1, it's backward, but 4-1-1, 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year.
Yep.
As you were saying, we went backwards. I got to the 4-week number and the month number.
Nice. So did you dive into, I just want to make sure I don't overdo, and I apologize for segging away.
That's okay, cool.
Did you guys break down how many appointments Melissa will need to make to hit her 22 yet?
No, that's one of those in the 4 week that we hadn't got to yet. Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
I'll jump right in on that then.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
if we're looking at closing 22 deals, then we know that not every single person that we put under contract is going to close. In the Denver market or any hot, sellers market, this percentage goes down a little bit, right? Only about maybe 10, 15% of deals are falling apart right now. It's because buyers are working harder right now to put and keep things together because they know it's worse to accept something that they may or may not want on the house they're on to then have to go fight and compete. But let's use an average of a 25% rule. So again, we want to use higher things than normal so that way this is realistic for Melissa. And if she, if any variable starts to happen, we're still can be in alignment, right? So we had 22 deals we need to close. So 22 times 1.25. Oops.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is 22 doesn't mean you only need 22. 22 means you might need 25, 26. What's the number?
Right.
Your
So,
1.25 was how much?
Oh, it's 27.5. So we're going to round up to 28 since we can't close half a deal. So we need to so Melissa would need to put 28 people under contract. And then understand that there's times that things fall apart. Buyers lose a job and they will never buy with you. A seller loses their new build contract due to something crazy and they'll never actually sell. Yeah, you name it, stuff happens. Just stuff happens. I had one go under contract. We got down to a week before closing. $7,000 earnest money riding on this. We're past every contingency. And the buyer's mom says, hey, I thought about it. And you know what? You can live in my basement. They pulled out of the contract, let go of their $7,000 in earnest money, and went and lived in their parents' basement.
Hey, my neighbor moved out and moved to Nebraska. And I found that I got him a referral in Nebraska. They bought a house and calls me 2.5 months later and says, hey, don't sell our house. What do you mean don't sell your house? Well, we're thinking we don't like it here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I got another referral out of it because I was able to find them. But my point is, you're absolutely right. Things happen. It just happens.
Yep. So we got 28 deals. So not everything's going to close. Now, off of even just getting to the point where we're writing offers. So what do you think of the percentage of going from an agency agreement to making an offer really is, or putting a listing under contract? It's about another 75% probability, right? So sometimes you'll sit down with people, they'll sign a buyer's agency with you, and before they go under contract on a house, they have to re-rent because they didn't learn something about their lease, or a seller, same thing. They might not actually move across the country. So if we got 28 times 1.25, so now we were looking at, she needs to put, basically she needs to lock down about 35 appointments that sign with her. So realistically speaking, this is when the math gets a little bit hairier. But when you're looking at, yeah, there you go, Harry. When you're looking at when you're looking at appointments and actually meeting with people and having them work with you, it's about a 50-50. This is that number in real estate that people really get discouraged by if they don't understand it. Sometimes 50% of your appointments just don't even show up. And then 50% of your appointments that actually show up, some of them will work with you and some of them won't. So it'll be up to your close rate, but we're going to go off of a 50-50. You guys will have, this is where the numbers get a little bit better. The more that you understand that you got to call and confirm the appointment, the more that you got to understand that if you ask the right questions over the phone and somebody says, yes, I will meet with you, is that them saying yes, or did you force them into the yes to get you off the phone and they're never going to show up again anyways? So on average, when you first start, you're at about a 50-50. 50-50, they'll show up. 50-50, they're actually going to sign with you. As you get better and more methodical about your business and understand your points of, oh my gosh, people aren't showing up because I provided no value through the first phone call, and so they didn't expect me to bring value. Or I forgot to actually, I set up a meeting for a week in advance and I forgot to call and follow up with them the day before, and the day of was just too late and they didn't respond. You'll learn all of those different tweaks. So 50-50, we got 35. So that means we need to set 70 appointments. So that's just somebody verbally saying, I'm going to meet you there, or you're actually meeting with somebody. Some of the other things that I've learned is I will believe that we're going to go and set an appointment, and then that person gets there and the only thing they really want is a coffee conversation. So you have to decide, did you actually hold the appointment, or did you just meet with somebody belly to belly, right? You have to define that for your business. But for me, if that conversation doesn't progress their situation or allow me to present, it wasn't really an appointment. It was a follow-up meeting. Instead of having it over the phone, it was just in front of them. That's the difference between it. If it feels like it's just a follow-up meeting, it's not really an appointment, is the way my business defines it. Okay? Everybody tracking so far? And you've been extremely quiet. I don't know what you're saying, but whatever.
There, I'm just listening. I did all my numbers.
I know.
Yeah, I think
That's
you were in my business class, weren't you?
I was, and then Bruce and I did a deep dive yesterday, so I was able to take it
Good.
to the date. So I'm just listening.
Cool. No, I know. I just like calling you out. So we've got 70 appointments that Melissa needs to set for next year. Not hold, but set, with the idea that we need to at least be on track to hold 35, right? So Melissa's gonna decide one way or another what's better for her. And here's what I mean by that. She can either each month say, on average, I need to have at least 3 appointments a month. I need to hold 3 appointments a month, or she's going to need to look at it and say, I need to at least set 8 appointments a month. Either way should, traditionally speaking, get her to her closing goal.
Which is by month to the year. In other words, Bruce is breaking it down even further. You're 22, that then becomes 2, that then becomes how many appointments you need to set that month so that you hit that number. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
See how you can look at it in any manner,
Yep.
right? 2 closings a month. Well, if we know and we do the math, that says we need to at least set and hold at least 3 appointments,
Yep.
right? Because there's a 66% chance. So there's so much math and so many different things, but we'll all pretty much get to that same base number. So now Melissa decides, all right, is my heart and my head and my soul in setting appointments, or am I going to be discouraged by not holding appointments? So what am I going to focus on? I focus on setting the appointments. The reason why I've learned to focus on setting appointments for me is I find it to be a game. Meaning, I don't like the number of 50% people show up to appointments and I land that. That's a very low percentage for me. But the reality is that's a tough percentage to overcome. I think in my career, I've only ever gotten effectively up to about 65, 70% actually of set appointments that actually stick, that actually hold, that actually go my way. And it's a hard process because you can set the appointment, confirm with them the day before, confirm with them the day of, actually get a response for both confirmations, and they still
You're
don't
driving
show
over
up.
there and then they call you and say they can't make it.
Yep.
Right. Been there,
So-
done that.
Yep. And so some people look at the way I look at it as discouraging. Like, why would you want to try and beat that ratio? If you already know that ratio is discouraging, why would you want to? Why don't I just hold my 4 appointments or 3 appointments a month? I'm so sorry. I said that wrong. She needs to hold 3 appointments a month or set 6 a month. I think I said 8. Okay. So that's what we would do. So now, realistically speaking, Melissa, are you able and do you feel confident in your abilities to either one, hold 3 appointments a month or set 6? And she would say, you know, I'm not sure. It's my first year. And it's because we kind of still got to dive in a little further. All right. Like I said, this class, we're going to get a little nitty gritty today. We're going to dive in a little further. So let's just take the 3 appointments held per month. That's the goal because that's what gets her to those 22 closings. So if we got 3 appointments a month, now we got to figure out what activities does she need to do each week and each day that actually land her 3 appointments a month. Now, as Melissa and I are coaching, I'm going to tell her that her goal, her non-negotiable is to hold 3 appointments a month. Her stretch goal is going to be 4, and we're just going to call it 1 per week. And we're going to base her activities off of 1 per week because, like Harry said, if you hit more, fine, take that vacation. Because you guys, what you guys want to know right now is that you should be thinking in your head, I need to set this many appointments per month and per week, but I have a life to live. I'm going to go on these vacations. I'm going to go, there's something that's going to come up in my life. I'm going to get sick and take some time off. Something's going to happen in life. And so do I really have 52 weeks in the year? So myself, if I'm sitting down with Melissa one-on-one, I'm going to stretch her to understand that she's probably going to need to look at about 1 appointment a week to hold at a minimum. Because if she doesn't, then she's probably not going to take some time off. And if she takes some time off, it's just going to pull back from her goals anyways. And like Harry said, if you get through halfway through the year and you're at, 55% of your appointment goal held, you're probably in pretty close alignment with your goals. But if you go to the middle of the year and you're at a 35-40% ratio of your goal, then we've got to double down and you might need to start canceling vacations. And that's not a great place to be in either. Or you take your vacation, understand that you weren't willing to put forth the effort that you committed to, and start to understand that you're probably not going to hit those 22 goals or your goal of 22, and start to have that set in the summer versus at the end of the year when it's Christmas time and you're supposed to be present with your family. And the only thing you can think of is how much you failed yourself. That's not a great feeling. I don't want to go down that road on this video. But if I'm coaching Melissa, I'm coaching her and I'm educating her that our one-on-ones are going to be based upon how was that 1 appointment this past week. Okay. So now, how does she obtain 1 appointment a week, and how many people does she have to talk to, and what does she have to go through? Well, I think she needs to understand kind of the metrics, kind of some more statistics. For those of you that really are getting to know me, I'm not really a statistics guy except for these. These are what works, and I'll be honest, I've challenged them, and you can't challenge them. It's just kind of societal norms. So if Melissa tells me that her plan of attack is to cold lead generate, so cold call, door knock, anything that somebody doesn't know her, I'm going to tell her, realistically speaking, it's about 100-to-1 ratio.
Yep.
And maybe 100-to-2 right now because everything's kind of going digitally. And I think we are getting more internet responses and some more people being at home answering cold calls and people being at home and answering their door. So let's do that. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on this one. 2 out of 100, right? 2 out of 100 are probably leads, and then one out of the 2 of those leads could probably be the appointment.
Yep.
So if she says she wants to do that, then she has to basically commit to me that she's going to talk to and converse and ask 100 people a week or 20 people a day if they want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. Go ahead, Harry.
Nope. I was going to say a good conversation. In other words, where you can dive into you want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. Just because somebody answers and then they go, no, I'm not interested, and you get off. That's not a conversation.
Not effective. It's not
Yeah.
effective.
Sorry,
Yep.
better word.
Nope, it's okay. So, and like Harry said, I mean, we can go into the definitions. My definition is if I interact with somebody and they shut me down, it's not a contact unless I blatantly ask for business. If I ask for business and you just tell me no, and I don't have the right scripts to continue the conversation, when you first start, still a conversation, probably still a contact, and you just need to know you probably got to talk to more people. But when you get more effective and you develop your skills, when I hear no, I think, well, I'm just 3 questions away from figuring out something else. And so I hear no, and then I ask 3 more questions around something else and try and get them. So if they don't know a buyer, maybe they know a seller. If they don't know a seller, maybe they're looking to buy an investment. If they don't looking to buy an investment, they don't know a seller, they don't know a buyer, maybe they've thought about getting into a career in real estate. Maybe they know somebody who's looking for a career in real estate. So we want to make sure that when you guys are going through and contacting people, you got to understand there's 5 scenarios that could happen. They have a buyer, they have a seller, they are a lead, they might want to, they might think about being a real estate agent, and they might know somebody who's in real estate. You got to go into almost every conversation understanding that if you don't ask the right questions, you'll never get to those 5 scenarios. So you're be more effective as you go. But on average, cold lead generation, about 1 appointment to 100 conversations.
You know, and here's the deal on that, folks. Bruce just now told you 98 people are going to tell you no. He just made sure you understood that 98 people are going to tell you no. So guess what? When you get off the phone and somebody told you no, you should have expected it. 98% of the people are going to tell you no. So it's one of those where you go, well, 1 closer. I used to tell people that all the time. Every time somebody tells you no, it's 1 closer. That's all you have to look at it that way, because then it becomes a positive thing instead of a negative thing, right? So just remember that no matter what, you're going to get a lot of no's, and that's okay.
How do you turn I love creating those no's into opportunities and talking to them about referrals. I think that's huge. How do you do that in email when it's kind of a colder email and you're not on the phone?
You want to tackle it, Harry? I got you covered all day, Ann.
Go
All
ahead.
right.
What did
You're
you say
on.
here? Oh, okay. So the way that I would tackle it is very similarly to the words I would use. However, there's a little bit more grammar and punctuation and detail because I can. Now, you want to always mirror and match on an email as well. If you're getting direct bullet point responses and questions, then I kind of instantly think, okay, in order for me to effectively get my message out, I'm going to have to do this in the form of maybe 3 or 4 emails.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild because I'm a type A personality, and I'd much rather read 4 separate emails, each having 1 or 2 bullet points apiece, than I would
Hey,
one
sister.
email.
Hi, Derek. This is Melissa with Keller Williams. How are you?
I would rather have, I hope that's a lead for her. I really do. Like,
I know.
I'm throwing that out there. I'm just like throwing that out there, like to the universe. Like, I hope she's crushing a lead right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to kind of, you want to, email is just like mirror and matching. For some reason, my stupid brain would rather read 4 emails with 2 to 3 bullet points apiece than 1 email and 8 bullet points apiece.
Okay.
Right?
That's a human, by the way, they teach you that in journalism school. That is a more of a human instinct than you think. That's why a lot of things are done in small paragraphs, because it's how people grab that information. And what Bruce is trying to say is when you put this many things on it, you lose that person and then they don't want to be bothered. But if you shorten it up to this 1 bullet.
Yeah, I always do just real short, but what if they don't email you back? How do you turn that into, hey, you're not getting back to me, but do you know anyone else that might be buying or selling? Like, how do you take it to the next if it's a dead lead? Well, or just cold. It's cold. It's not dead. It's cold.
Okay, so give me some more because I got scripts for everything, but I'm not following the situation. So is it cold
They
or
want to
is it?
sell their house. They want to
Okay.
sell their house within the next year. They don't have an agent. I've emailed them 3 times now. Today was my 3rd, not getting back to me in any of them. And now how do I take it? Yeah, they might not be interested in me, but maybe they have other people. And how long
Sure.
do you wait?
Sure. So one, if somebody says it in a year from now, my question to you is how many times did you touch, how long of a span did you touch them 3 different times?
3 weeks. And
Yep.
I set them up on a neighborhood nurture. And then I have a weekly, I've been providing them value. I have a weekly events newsletter that I sign them up for. And I let them know that.
Perfect. I would be rolling with that and I wouldn't think much about that.
Just
They're
keep going like every 3 weeks.
They're just it's just too early in their
They're not ready.
stage of development.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not ready.
So
So
I just keep, happy holidays, just keep going. Okay,
but
cool.
but I'm going to give you your answer to what you can still do. I like the aggressiveness up front. I'm a big proponent of an 8x8, 8 touches over 8 weeks. And then I really drastically jump off of that and I go more to once a month. Now, after 8 weeks and they're not responding, they're probably getting upset. As soon as they stop seeing your face for 8 times in 8 weeks, they start to feel like, oh my gosh, is she going to do this to me all year round? And then all of a sudden,
The answer is yes. No, I'm just kidding.
well, then when you stop and you tailor it back to more of like once a month and maybe a weekly newsletter, it's a lot less invasive and they start to be like, okay, she's just branding herself. She's just there to remind me. So what I would do, Ann, is after about maybe the first month, maybe 2 months, one of my emails, because you do want to brand them. You want to groom them to think that when they think of real estate, they think of you. And so my email would be, hey, it's me again. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to bombard you. I tackle the elephant in the room. So I say, hey, it's me again. I don't mean to bombard you. The reason why you've received so many things from me over the last couple of months is because I really need to make sure that when your situation changes or something comes up in your life about real estate, that you know I'm here for you. So with that being said, yeah, just tackle the elephant.
Yeah.
With that being said, as you come closer and closer to putting your home on the market, what's going to happen is real estate is going to become more and more top of mind to you. Because of that, you're going to run and interact with more people that are also looking to make some real estate moves. I like to be a resource for anybody I can. So as you get closer to your project or to your timeline or whatever your words are, as you get closer to your goals, you're going to find and cross more and more people. Would you do me a favor and connect me with those people so I can be of resource to them too? I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Oh, I love that. Would it be super awkward, and this is for all of you, because I'm a brand new agent, would it be super awkward to be like, hey, I want to deliver you a pie? Do you want, like from Little Bird Bake Shop or something? You know, what kind do you want for Thanksgiving? Is that super creepy?
I think that if you think it's creepy, then you might come off that way. I do not think it's creepy at all.
It's creepy?
No, I don't think it's, I think it's showing that you have a care. Here's another thing, Ann. Are these people going to buy or sell? I couldn't remember what you said.
These are all, my buyers I'm great with. These are all sellers.
Hey, I know you're not in a hurry to sell your house. Just wanted you to know what the market's doing, and I found a house that's similar to yours. Just thought this would give you some information about when you are ready.
I did that.
Perfect.
I did that today because
So,
you guys made me do that. Yes, I did that.
so the pie thing, if you think it's creepy, you're going to come off as creepy. The way that I would do it is I would say, hey, I'm actually giving out pies to everyone I know, love, and trust and that I'm working with. I know we just started, but would you like a free pie from my company?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I would like a free pie. I love pie.
Right, and if you give it to everyone, you're not singling them out, so you take away the creep factor, like Caleb's mustache, you know.
Right.
Exactly. That is so creepy. No, it's not.
And
But I could
so-
say like I could partner with like Little Bird Bake Shop or something like that.
And
Yeah.
you think about it, Ann, somebody's
Okay.
gonna get that pie and go, that is amazing.
Yeah.
He sent us
And
a
during
pie."
COVID, they know it's from like a trusted source. It wouldn't be like, just some random pie off the street.
If I always question whether I should do something or market myself or whatever it is, I do it.
The answer is yes. Yep.
Yes.
Like that.
So the
At the end of the
second
day,
you
mind share
question
is
it,
market
do
share.
it.
Mind share is market
it.
share. I don't care if it's a pie or the email, doesn't matter.
Love it. Thank you guys. That's awesome.
You bet. So where was I at?
Before I
You-
took you on a train.
So you did the number of cold lead generations to.
Okay, Melissa, we're dying to know if that was a cold call, that was somebody calling about real estate and you hooked them.
Oh, no, but like a potential business partner type situation. So
Nice.
real estate related.
Exciting. That's really exciting.
Good.
Sorry.
Nope, it's okay. I do know where we're at. Yeah, so 100 to 1 ratio, right? So then we would be looking at going, okay, is her business going to be based off of cold lead gen? Now, realistically speaking, if it's done correctly, when you first start in real estate, the people you know, love, and trust, you tend to have an average of about a 50 to 1. So that's why we always promote and push the sphere and the people you know, love, and trust. And it can be nerve wracking. And that's why I say, traditionally speaking, you start off at a 50 to 1 ratio of who you know, love, and trust will most likely give you a lead that will sit down and close and do business with you. The key is if you're not asking for the business because you know, love, and trust them and they're more friends and that's what your relationship was built on, you have to get used to it, and it's tough. And so, I encourage you to basically build that relationship and ask in different forms. You guys all know my style. My style is not to ask the people I know, love, and trust over the phone for business directly, right? But indirectly, right? Hey, if you run across somebody between now and the end of 2021, will you do me a favor and just introduce me to them and see if I can be of assistance to them? I want to be a resource to at least just one person that you know throughout the rest of this year. So I'm asking for business, but I'm not saying, who do you know right now that I could help and call today? And both will work. The people that say, who do you know that I can call today, most likely will get more leads. And that's when you start to grab into that 35 to 1 ratio. But relationally speaking, it's about 50 to 1 to start. And then you get better over time because they see your marketing, they see your email signature, they hear your voice. They watch you on Facebook. They got invited to a couple of events. When you get into this and you have a sphere of about 500 people should get you close to about 30 closings a year. And that runs at about a 15 to 1 ratio. That is effective. That is a powerhouse database. And that's the team that I used to run with. The team that I was on, that's what we pretty much put up. If we had a database of about 2,000 people, we put up about 100 transactions a year. And we didn't always run at 15 to 1. Some people in our database, some groups it's 50 to 1. Some groups are 35 to 1. And then the A++, A's, B's, whatever you guys want to label them, the real solid people in your life, about a 15 to 1 sometimes. So knowing those metrics, Melissa and I would sit down and we'd go through this week after week. And that's what coaching really is. So when you guys, I know a lot of you guys have had one-on-ones with me and we go through a lot of things, and a lot of our conversations are more geared towards training and how-tos. But as you guys get going, that's what you still need to lean in on me for the accountability piece. So Melissa and I's every week's conversation would be, why did you hit more than 1 or 1, and why didn't you hit 1, depending upon what she hit? How did you do it? What can we shake up? What went right? What went wrong? Did we find any opportunities where you could have asked more questions? And then I help her fine tune that and go from 50 to 1 to 20 to 1, 15 to 1 is effective. The best that they've recorded is about 13 to 1. So 13 people, can you imagine calling 13 people right now and basically methodically getting a lead every single day, and all you had to do is call 13 people? Mark my words, Melissa, it's coming. I love the way you smile at that, because you know it's coming. It'll come when we build that tech piece, and I apologize we can't get that 33 touch going, but we will, and it works. And you don't even have to have the system tell you. You can write it on paper and use a piece of paper form. But you talk to your people 33 times in a year, at the minimum, you're going to get business left and right. So we go through these numbers and we say, hey, Melissa, all right, if half of your business is going to be built off of cold lead gen and the other half is going to be built off of your database, then now we got to get really far into the weeds. This is where this goes over a lot of people's heads when I do this. So if we know that if you strictly cold called, it'd be 100 to 1. So if we tailor that back to, let's say 50% of your time is cold lead gen and 50% of your lead gen is Sphere, and we have a 100 to 1 ratio, and that means if you only get 50 people in for that week on cold lead generation, you don't have half a lead. You may or may not have a lead from that batch of 50. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So now we're looking at a 2-week span. So in 2 weeks, can you call 100 people cold, meaning 50 a week, and then throughout your other time of maybe talking with your Sphere, and we're on a 50 to 1, can you talk to another 50 or 25 and understand that after 2 weeks, you're going to hit the same metrics? Or maybe Melissa says, this week, I'm going to focus on cold lead gen. I'm going to get in 100 contacts. And then next week, I'm going to take some pressure off me, and I'm going to talk to 50 people in my Sphere. And the rest of the time is going to be working on operations, because Bruce, I don't have any time during the weeks that I'm cold calling to work on operations. Because if I work on operations and I'm trying to get 20 people a day, I don't actually get 20 people a day. So this is where I work with Melissa on how she wants to formulate her business. So again, I'm going to slow this down. This is where it goes over people's heads. Melissa now has some choice. Does she want to go 1 week focus, or does she want to focus on 2 different pieces during each week? Does that make sense? That's her choice. It's her business. I'll tell you that going through this and getting bored with lead generation, because that's what lead generation becomes. Once you quit sweating, once you quit shaking, once you quit being nervous, and once your phone stops weighing 1,000 pounds, lead generation is one of the most boring things there is. And the fortune is in that. Lead generation and follow-up, it's the easiest and mind-numbing thing that we do. But we have to be methodical about it. So I learned that for me and my personality, my week has to consist of each day. So this is how nitty-gritty I got. 1 day I would cold lead generate. 1 day I would lead follow-up. 2 days I would be my sphere of influence. And 1 day maybe door knocking around an open house, or preparing for an open house, or maybe taking that day off of lead generation and doing 2 open houses that weekend. That's how nitty gritty I got. It wasn't 100 cold contacts in 1 week. It was 1 day of cold calling, and maybe I get 40 in, because you get more effective. 2 days of sphere work. 1 day, just simply handwritten notes and Facebook, social media, reach outs, touches, birthdays, that sort of thing. And then the next day, sphere of influence related, that's when I would make all my DTD2 calls, or my database calls for everybody that's listening that doesn't understand what DTD2 is. So it's your business, Melissa, and this is what we would coach around. This is what we have hopefully coached around. But a lot of what we've done, Melissa, has been about a lot of training. Now we're getting into that nitty gritty of each day of the week, right? Mondays, I don't know if anybody knows this, but I was not a open house follow-up guy on Mondays. I went to trainings upon trainings upon trainings that said, hey, after the weekend, follow up with your open house leads. Well, what I found is my open house leads were going to everybody else's open houses. And so everybody kept calling them on Monday, and they never answered or called back anybody on Monday. But boy, if I could hit them on Tuesday, and I was the only one reaching out on Tuesday, I just felt like I had more success. So Tuesdays would be my lead follow-up days, open house leads from 3 open houses ago. Mondays, I got to get myself in gear. I got to figure out what I'm doing, right? Most of the time that was cold lead generation, because Mondays, it just, as long as I put that in my mind, I didn't have to think about it. It was just one script, circle prospect, and just dial.
Now, this gets back to when, Bruce, you were gone for a minute, and I was saying the exact same thing. Monday can be one sort of lead process. Tuesday can be another. It doesn't have to be that you have to do four lead generation things in one day. You can, and here's the other thing, and this is from experience. There was, when I took Bold, there was no way to hit 100. They called it the Bold 100. There was no way. I'm sitting there, well, these people are out of their minds, right? I'm in my brain, that's what I'm saying. And then I'm driving home that night and I thought, God, that'd be so cool to get 100. I wonder how you could do it. So I went home and I was determined I was going to talk to 100 people. I worked all day the next day, dialing, talking to 100 people. Now, what did that teach me? It taught me it's doable. And then it taught me, oh my God, I only have to do 20. When this is done, I only have to do 20 a day. 20 a day was like not doing it. So you'll get yourself into that mindset. Again, is what Bruce is talking about, that mindset. It's just a mindset. 20 became like, God, I can do that in 20 minutes, right? That's sort of my mindset after that. So it became easier and easier. So it gets back to that mindset and what Bruce was talking about earlier. You got to be in that mindset. He said Monday was a perfect day for him to be in that mindset and making those cold calls. Great day to do it.
Yep, it all depends.
Yep.
And I'll share with you guys, I mean, I know some of you guys know my story. I love stories because you guys got to understand, Terry and I came from exactly where you're at. The first time somebody told me to make 20 contacts in a day, I went from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and gave up. It wasn't happening. I got to the point where I could get 20 contacts in 6 hours. That was rough. And then down and progress and so on and so forth and trying different things, right? If you continually have to use and take 6 hours to get 20 contacts, but your peers are figuring out how to get 20 contacts in 2 to 3 hours, then quit doing the same things. You got to change up your system. There's something you're doing that you're missing. So I'm not really a big competitor. Like if you guys want to compete with me on something, you're not going to get my attention. But if you want to challenge me to compete with myself on something, you're going to get my attention. I mean, there's a reason why the majority of you know I either show up to things about 2 minutes before or 2 minutes after, because I cannot stand sitting in my car for 5 to 10 minutes waiting on something to start. That's 5 to 10 minutes. I can pound out at least 3 conversations or a couple of different emails. I mean, every minute of my day is become so precious to me that I finally understand why some people can accomplish 10 times more in the same amount of hours than somebody else. I finally get it. I finally figured it out.
And just to add on to that. So I'm just like him. I can't, to sit in a car and lose 10 minutes is like, are you serious? So just to give you an example, you have to start analyzing things. So one of the things I analyzed is I used to have to make East Coast phone calls. Okay, I lived in Austin. So what did I do on the way to work? Those were on my to-do list to do every day, was to call the East Coast people. That way I was doing 2 things at once and I was being super productive, right? So those are what he's talking about, is can you do some of those things? You got to figure out those things. You got to look at them, take a step back sometimes and look at them and say, what can I do differently? Or what can I do so where I'm utilizing and maximizing my time?
Bingo.
Right? You might be, when you're dialing, if you're using a dialer, you could be writing to 10 people that you wanted to write to, waiting for that call to come in, right? Anyway,
Bingo.
Go.
Nope, that's great. And that's exactly what I'm going into now. So we're talking about our goals. We're breaking it down. We're going through how many appointments do I need? Now, Melissa has to decide, what does her week look like? She also has to decide if she wants to, she has to decide if she wants to figure out, am I an appointment person or am I a contacts person? Do I need to know how many contacts it takes to get to the appointment a week? Or do I just focus on the appointment a week? I know my metrics, and I know that if I do 50 contacts cold style, I can probably get that. But am I focused on that, right? So she has to decide that, and that's what we would do. And that's what Harry and I are really diving into right now, is that time blocking piece. So we put together this class. We wanted to share with you guys exactly what you should and shouldn't be looking at and how to hone in on your goal. But now no goal is effective unless we take action around it. So now you've always hear people say, I want, I wish, I intend to, blah, 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 blah. The only people that actually achieve it are the people that take the action, right? And so in our one-on-one meeting, I'd be looking for Melissa to make some commitments and to make some tangible, yes, Bruce, that's actually doable. This is what I want to do. Now, I can't do anything about this next piece. The action part is up to her. And so we want to end this little segment here on more of this kind of conversation, more of how you can be more effective. Because a lot of people are willing to put in the activity. What they're not willing to do is put in the time around the activity or figure out how to be more efficient with that piece. So I want to share with you guys a little bit more of my progression and where I went, because I had to go with 20 contacts a day. I couldn't figure out how to do it in 8 hours. Finally figured out how to dial that into about a 2 hour period. To the best I think I've ever got to is about an hour and a half. But there's more to it, right? There's more to it, because what happens is if it's a stretch for you to get 20 a day and it pains you, our bodies and our minds do not like to be in pain 4 and 5 days a week. So what I see a lot of people do is they go ham 2 to 3 days in a row. And that 4th day, it's so hard to motivate yourself to get out of bed and do it again. So what I learned to do was I learned to stretch myself to an extreme limit to where 20 felt so easy, it's not even funny. And that's when I took Bold. And then they were talking about this Bold 100. So do they talk about it? For those of you guys taking Bold right now online, I don't think they said much about Bold 100s in May, but are they talking about that at all right now? Okay. So in Bold, in person, the homework that you have is 100 people a week or 20 people a day. That's the base. You'll get a reward if you want to commit to what they call a Bold 100. So you go to Bold 1 day a week, and the rest of your days you have to hit 20 a day or 100 contacts before the next Bold. For the people that commit to a Bold 100, you have to hit not only your 20 contacts a day, but you have to pick 1 day out of that week that you're going to commit to hitting and talking to 100 people that day. Not 100 dials, 100. Melissa's eyebrows. 100 people a day. And see, when you're sitting in class and that instructor is up there, I mean, these instructors have gone through hours of training, and the way that they're delivering it makes it feel like you're going to crush it. Like, there's no way you can't get 100 contacts.
Yeah.
And everybody's in the room going, excuse me? Like, is this guy for real? Did he say 100? Did he mean like 20 in an hour or what? Like 100 minutes? 100 people a day. It took me 3 attempts before I could even get past 50 people. 3 attempts. And I'm watching people go in their first attempt, they get it. And so I'm masterminding with them, like, what are you doing that I'm not doing? How can you get 100 contacts in 1 day? And here, and I mean, everybody was doing different things. Like, everybody was doing different things. The one person, they held a garage sale. So they held a garage sale. Their spouse was at the garage sale, and they were handing out cards asking for business for this person. And this other person was going around and just swooping in on every garage sale known to man. She was going around and advertising her garage sale to people at other garage sales, as well as asking for business, as well as talking to the homeowners that were holding the garage sale. And she got it done, like by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, how did you do that? She's like, well, about the first couple of hours, I was so sick of having these one-on-one conversations that all I had to do was kind of look around at my table and basically pick up something and say, hey, hey, everybody, can I have your attention, please? And she'd gather around like 10 people, and she'd say, hey, if anybody wants this, this is half off. But hey, while I have your attention, does any of you know, if any of you know of anybody that wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, please come talk to me, and this is free. It's not even half off. So she was able to hit 10 at a time. And that's when I started going, oh my gosh, I've got to open my mind. I've got to open my eyes. When I walk past that person on the sidewalk, nice shoes, dude, where'd you get those? Right? And then you start a conversation. You just pull stuff out of your rear everywhere you go. But it took about 3 times for me just to figure out how to actually talk to 50 a day. And then I finally got my Bold 100. It was awful.
My daughter,
it was awful.
He's laughing, but they give you a pin. And I thought, so the first week I got the pin, couldn't wait to put it on. I don't know why, I just thought.
Oh, that thing feels so good.
Yeah. And so I thought, man, what would it be like to get one on the other side? That'd be cool. I didn't see anybody in the class with 2 on. So that's what I did. I went the next week and did the same thing. And what Bruce talks about, my daughter started me. She goes, Dad, it was Halloween. It was Halloween. And she goes, you ought to talk to everybody, the parents and stuff, and give them a piece of candy or something, and have your card and stuff. And I thought, that sounds stupid, but I'm going to do it because I took my grandkids out. I talked to 112 people that night. And I thought, that was the easiest 112 people I talked about real estate. So it's just, and you'll think about those kind of things that can, help you achieve some of those goals. But sometimes you have to take a step back and look, okay, how do I do this? How can I, it's like Bruce, somebody stands up and gets 10 people. It's a great way to get 10 people.
Bingo.
Right?
That's wild you say that. That was my first Bold 100 too, as I reversed, I reversed trick-or-treated on trick-or-treat. I didn't have a kid then. I just went around with a huge bag of candy, and I went around and I was going against the grain of traffic. And so as people were walking by, coming around from other homes, I'd stop the parents and I'd say, hey, reverse trick or treat. I don't have a house. So I decided to get on the streets and give out candy. So who are your kids? I want to make sure, I'm giving the right kids candy. Oh, and by the way, while I have you here, I'm also in real estate. So I had 2 bags. One bag was candy that was just candy. And another bag, I took the time to staple my damn card on everything, every single piece of candy.
That's what I did. I stapled it on every piece of candy.
And that's what I got handed out to the parents. And you go against the grain of traffic, because naturally neighborhoods start to have like a flow, it seems. Well, that's what I experienced. And I would hit those people walking around with their kids, and then I'd hit the people that are sitting right on their door. It was the best door knocking experience of my life. Like, everybody was expecting people to go up to their porch. And here I am, not really a grown man, but, a teenager looking dude walking up to places. And I'm like, yeah, reverse trick or treat. Like, I don't have a costume. I'm not here to take your candy, but I see you're almost out. Here you go. By the way, I got my business cards on there. Can you hand those out for me? It was amazing.
I got my second one because I volunteered, and it was going to be at King Super, this place that I volunteered for. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how do I get both out of this? How do I hand out my card, talk to people, and do this nonprofit thing? And I figured it out. I went there for an hour ahead of time, figured out how I would do it, and I talked to another 100 people. I talked to them about the nonprofit, and I talked to them about real estate. It was great. So yeah, there's just different ways to figure it out.
Did you have anybody do a Bold 500?
No. Wow.
So this one was really tough. I have never done it, and I'm not even gonna blow smoke. I got so tired by day 4, it wasn't even funny. Bold 500. So Bold 500, it basically took it up a notch, right? Bold came out with the Bold 100, and that took a long time for coaches to be able to actually get people to do it and then share the results. Because once one person does a Bold 100, mark my words, you got 3 or 4 people in that room going, all right, yeah, I got to do this too. Like, if they can do it, I can do it. And so the progression of real estate is I got to get competitive, right? And they came out with this Bold 500, and it's a Bold 100 all 5 days that you should be lead generating.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that was the next piece of who can be in that room that can do that? And realistically speaking, I mean, our Bold coaches were telling us, it was about 1 per state at that point was able to effectively do it. I wasn't. I mean, I made it through 3 consecutive Bold 100s. And then that 4th day, I wanted to curl up into a ball and die.
Yeah.
But the reality is those first 3 days, I lost leads because I forgot to follow up with them. That's how many leads I got out of those 3 days. 3 days, I had probably 10 to 15 different, like, yes, I will buy with you in the next couple of months type of people. And I lost track of them. I was so tired. I was so burnt out. I didn't have any time to do any data entry. The reality is, though, if you get 15 solid leads and you only help 6, still 6 more than I ever would have put in that effort if I didn't take those 3 days to do it. But anyways, long story short, it made me realize that if I stretched myself and I could figure that out, I got to the point where it's not to say 20 contacts in 2 hours wasn't still like I had to watch my time and stuff. What it was when that timer started, I knew I wasn't going to have to go till 8 o'clock at night. When that timer starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're done by 11, you're like, this is nothing. Let's do this. Hello, this is Bruce. Like, I am so energized because I don't have to sit here and do this for 100 times today.
Yep.
So you stretch that rubber band, like the law of that rubber band, right? You stretch it to its max. And then the next time you go to stretch it even halfway, it's just too easy for you to do. And that's what you have to do. So to wrap up this class and to really connect these points and not to share with you guys all of our secrets and all of our failures, but we called this class, right? Like, how do you get to your goal? How do you know it's something that you want to do? So you can always dive this down and reduce this down into something that says, yes, I feel confident I can do that, right? I hope Melissa's over there shaking her head saying, I feel confident that I can set 1 appointment a week, right? Now, we always tell ourselves we can do things. We always tell ourselves we will do things, and things happen. And it's all about taking action. I'm going to leave you guys with, I encourage you guys to figure out what you're willing to do and understand right off the rip that because you're willing to do it in your mind does not mean you're going to take the action. So in order to get from that point A of I can do this, this is very doable, to I am doing this, I am taking action and it's happening, you guys are going to have to go through a stretch period. And here, and if this is your stretch period, maybe this metaphor will work. I really hope this doesn't come off weird. If this is your stretch period from I'm committed to this to I've got to take the action and I am actually doing it, you're going to have to probably put in this much action and stretch yourself for about a week or two this way, like double what your actual activity is going to be to get yourself into the point where when this is all the action you need to take, this action is so easy because you just went through this hell over here stretching yourself. Does that make sense?
It's almost like the script, right? When you first start in your first script, first day, you're going to spend this much time with it. And as you go and get better and better and better and better and better and better, that script becomes like this. Same.
If you're not willing to stretch yourself, basically, if you take 2 and 3 days and you stretch yourself to this level, that's the capacity that you have, which means every day that you want to try and get to this capacity, it means you're going to stretch yourself to the point where you're going to get burnt out in 3 and 4 days. Burn yourself out for a week or two over here. For a week or two, burn that thing. And then tailor it back to the actual activity it takes to hit your goal. And now that activity seems like you're not stretching at all.
Piece of cake.
Yep. Does that make sense? That's the only way I know how to, like, analogically speaking, show you how to take action. It's all it is in this industry. People say, well, Bruce, I need to do more. I mean, Patrick and I had a nice long conversation last week. He's working on stretching himself right now, right? And that's why I called him last night. I want to make sure that he consistently stretches himself to a breaking point over these next couple of weeks, because he's got to get to that point where he stretches himself so much that when I give him and he gives himself that grace to come back down to here, what used to be a very stretch point in his life will no longer be a stretch point. Melissa, you went through the same thing. I called you out on scripts the other day and you crushed it. You crushed it. And if I would have done that to you 3 weeks ago, it wouldn't have come out the way it came out. I know you stretched yourself and I know you tried to push through it. I mean, I could sit here and go around Robin all day long. Caleb, I've seen you more in the office than I ever have. You know that you have to work on your time blocking, your effective piece, and finding that what I call bunker. You guys are all working on it. Now, I got to encourage you to even just stretch a little further. And then when you get the habits down, you can stretch it, you can tailor it back, and it becomes mindless. It becomes so easy that the next thing you know, you're forgetting that you have a closing coming up. That's a decent feeling. It's a scary feeling, but it's a decent feeling.
First, I have a question. So cold calling, it's really easy to say I need to make 100 contacts or whatever the number is. But what about activities that don't really have like that, I don't know, like 100-to-1 return or whatever it might be, like something that's set. So, reaching out to your farm or that type of thing, or Facebook ads. And like, how do you quantify what you need to do for those in order to reach your goals?
Great. I can go ahead, Harry.
No, go ahead.
No, that's a fantastic question. That means you understood that I try not to go too far over people's heads, but this is the nitty gritty. Good question. You have more than just two sources of calling or talking to people, right? You have Facebook, you have those other things, right? So here's what I would encourage you to do. And this is why the 135 is so powerful. If on your 135, every priority was lead generation oriented, then in those priorities, one of your 5 strategies would probably be operationally behind that. So it means you wouldn't have a priority around operations. So your operations has to go under the strategies of that. So what I would do then is I would sit down with you, Melissa, and I would say, okay, based upon what you just told me, we're going to work on your sphere. We're going to work on your, we're going to work on cold calling, and we're going to work on Facebook lead generation. So cold calling, that category, I would kind of keep it broad. And that means I would in that category, I'd have strategies around cold calling, my farm and knocking. You see what I mean? So farm doesn't have to be a priority. It can be lumped into a general piece of lead gen, if that makes sense, right? So what we would do is we'd say, okay, what are my top 3 main focuses? And from those top 3 main focuses, now realistically speaking, how many deals out of the 22 closings that I want to have, how many am I going to effectively pull out of each category? So if I had a piece of paper right now, I'd be drawing this down and I would say, okay, we have your SOI. Do you feel like you want to put in 50% of your effort is going to, 50% of your day, your time, your energy, every part of your being is focused on your sphere? Because then that would be 11 closings. If it's not going to be, then we'd tailor that down to 7 closings or whatever that metric would be. Then if you said, okay, now out of that, I have 21 or 22 minus 7, I have 15 left. So if I have 15 left, now how am I going to divide that into cold lead gen and Facebook? Right? And so with your first year, Melissa, it's a very good question, and I'm not going to have the right answers. We're going to have to put something down on paper and then pivot when it's not happening. So if we say I want to have 7 out of my sphere of influence, and we get through Q1 and you haven't closed 1 out of your sphere of influence, but you've closed more off of Facebook, then we might need to focus in on that Facebook lead gen. And we might need to tailor back the 7 from our sphere, or we might need to keep the 7 for our sphere and tailor it back from cold lead gen. So it's all a work in progress, especially your first couple of years, to know what you do and how much you're going to spend on it. But that's the way we would dive into it is, okay, now let's get into the real nitty gritty. If I want 7 closings out of my sphere of influence, and I know that I have a 50-to-1 ratio, how many people are in my database? Divide that by 50, and now how can I spread that out over the next, week, month, quarter, whatever that looks like for you? that make sense a little bit more?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'm confused about is, so you have your sphere of influence and theoretically you have a touch program. So are you like contacting them outside of the touch program also? No. Okay.
It should
Not
be
unless
one of
it's
your touches.
organic.
Should be one of your touches.
Okay. So that's just built in. Okay.
Yep, unless it's organic, right? You know, I have people that, you know, you go to a restaurant and you see, and then 2 weeks later, it comes up that it's time for their quarterly call. You make the decision as the business owner. Is the quarterly call going to be effective? Or did I have a nice long conversation with them? I pretty much figured out everything that's going on in life. And if I called them right now, I really wouldn't have much more to talk about. Maybe you skip that call. Or you saw that person out just randomly around town. They come up on your call list 2 weeks later, and they're an A+ client. There's somebody that actually refers you a lot of business. Make up something to call them. Hey, I saw you the other week, and after we got done chatting, I actually thought about this. Now you got all the personal stuff out of the way when you saw them on the streets. Jump right into business. I thought about this, and I wanted to share it with you today. But if they're like a D client, a D sphere of influence that doesn't ever refer you business, and you talk to them on the streets, probably you're going to skip that task.
Okay.
I just have to say, when we were doing this today during lead gen, I did one of my social media paid ads, and I just got a buyer lead
Nice.
just as we were sitting here.
So, Ann, you do a lot of that. Would you mind taking any sort of time with Melissa and kind of showing her what some effective, what some effective, ads look like that you're having some success with?
Yeah. My sphere is in here because I'm just moved to the state recently. So everything I do is digital marketing. I don't.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I do every lead I have is just through social and digital.
What email do you want me to share with her, Ann?
Ann at AnnCarlsonAgency.com.
Where were you from, Ann?
I moved from Minneapolis.
Oh, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yeah.
Here you go, Melissa.
You don't have a daughter that went to St. Olaf, do you?
Do I have a daughter? No.
Okay.
Why?
Because there's someone with the last name, but I know it's a common last name, but I thought I would.
Oh, yeah. We have about 300. Oh, my God. Everybody's Carlson there.
You don't have the accent. Minnesota.
Sometimes I do.
Okay.
Just
Any
not
other-
today.
Oops, sorry. Any other questions before I end the recording? We can stay on here and chat a little bit.
Yeah, just real quick. I think one of the things that I wanted to add to Melissa's, and Bruce, every week we want people to give us their numbers. And one of the reasons you want to do that is you want to track yourself so that you can see how effective you are in those things that you're doing. So if you were calling and it's like Bruce said, maybe you changed from doing Facebook one week because it wasn't effective and you went to something else. By you tracking yourself, it's going to help you decide what's the best way for me to get that appointment this week. And I've done these things before, and you'll know, wow, if I go door knocking, I'm going to get, this. Or maybe door knocking isn't what you want to do that week. But by following your numbers, it will make you much more effective in your business.
Bingo. Anything else?